Next chapter. The big lie. The big lie is all we ever hear. They say that money, for the federal government, money is exactly the same as money to me and you, as currency users, currency issuer. They say that the economy for currency issuers for the federal government is exactly the same as the economy for me and you. A budget for the federal government is exactly the same as a budget for me and you. This is the big lie. To say that these things are different between me and you compared to the federal government is an understatement. There is simply no comparison. Yet all we ever hear is that these things are exactly the same. And every other lie is based on this big lie. The national debt and borrowing. So you and I go to a bank and we ask for a loan. We say, can I please have $100? They analyze our history and they decide, sure, you can have $100. We are instantly in debt to the bank for $100 plus interest, 100% of that money. The bank will do whatever it takes to get that money back. There is no equivalent situation for the federal government. A reminder of the federal government's purpose. A government's purpose is to compel the people to use its real resources for the benefit of society. And money is the incentive that people get to do so. So when the Congress creates the currency, they are the source of the currency. What does it even mean to say that a currency issuer is in debt? What does it even mean to say that the currency issuer has borrowed money, needs to borrow money? Who does a currency issuer borrow their debt? Who does a currency issuer owe their debt to? Who do they borrow it from? No one else can create the United States dollar. There is no bank above the Congress. And to those who say we must pay back the debt, or our country is going to go bankrupt, our grandchildren are going to go bankrupt, to them, I want them to explain, I think they should be pushed to explain exactly how, logistically, step by step, how do you pay back that debt? How do you pay back the national debt? And to who? Our politicians, media, academia, and so-called experts constantly panic about this national debt that we must pay back. They talk about how it will bankrupt our nation and our future generations, and yet we never hear any protests or demands from this mythical bank that we supposedly owe this money to. So here's the technical definition of the national debt. The national debt is the total of all money that the Congress has spent into the economy since our country began that has not yet been taxed back. That's the technical definition. But here's the same thing in an easy-to-understand version. The national debt is the total amount of money of every American citizen's, every currency user's, investments, bank accounts, and wallets. The national debt is the American people's value. And if you truly wanted to pay down the national debt, if you truly wanted to get it down to zero, first of all, we could write a $21 trillion bill on a piece of construction paper. I don't know who we would give it to, but we could do that. But if we really wanted to get it down to zero, then by definition, that means we have to empty out every single American citizen's investments, bank accounts, and wallets. The big lie, a balanced budget, surplus and deficit for me and you, is exactly the same as these things for the federal government. So for me and you, balanced budget, surplus, and deficit. At the beginning of the week, we budget $100 for food, gas, children, everything. With a balanced budget, at the end of the week, we ended up spending $100, exactly what we budgeted. And we were fiscally responsible and probably a little lucky. With a surplus, we budgeted $100 at the beginning of the week. At the end of the week, we spent $85. We have $15 left over. We can give ourselves a treat. We could treat our family. We were even more fiscally responsible and probably a little more lucky. A deficit. You and I, we budget $100 at the beginning of the week. At the end of the week, unfortunately, we had to spend $120. We went over budget. We were fiscally irresponsible and probably had some bad luck. A deficit for me and you forces us to dip into our savings, use credit, take out a loan, call in favors, depend on charity, beg and steal. And now let's go into opposite world. A balanced budget, a surplus, and deficit for the federal government. The federal government spends $100 into the economy so people do what benefits society. And with a balanced budget in April, they tax back $100. All of it. What do people have left in their pockets after they pay their taxes? They have nothing. They have no money to invest or spend or save or survive. Yet this is what we are told is called fiscally responsible. A surplus. The government spends $100 into the economy so the people do what benefits society. And in April, they tax back $120. What do the people have in their pockets? They have less than zero. They can't even pay back their taxes with the money that the government has given them, let alone survive. But this is what is called even more fiscally responsible. And finally, the deficit. Government spends $100 into the economy, or $1 billion, whatever it is. Spends $100 into the economy, so that people do what benefits society. In April, they tax back $30. What do the people have in their pockets? They have $70 after paying their taxes. Now they can invest and save and spend and survive. And this is called fiscally irresponsible. The federal deficit is the people's income. It is the only thing that gives the people value. Yet this is the only thing that we are told is fiscally irresponsible. We are going to blow a hole in the deficit. And what they're saying is, it is irresponsible to give the American people value. The federal deficit is not just important, it is critical to the functioning of society. Without a deficit, people have no incentive to do what benefits society. The government might as well put a gun to their heads. And why would they spend $100 into the economy, given the purpose of a government, if they're just going to take it all back? Without a federal deficit, Americans are forced to dip into their savings, use credit, take out loans, depend on charity, beg and steal just to survive. And this puts pressure on states and cities who depend on that tax revenue from their citizens because they do need income. They are a currency user just like us. I would call the federal deficit our national income. I would call the national debt our national value or savings. Last chapter.